Tonight, shooting rampage in the heart of New York City. New details in the deadly attack on a Park Avenue office building that left 4 victims dead. The shooter leaving behind a 3-page note telling authorities, "Study my brain, please. I'm sorry."
I'm Aaron Katersky. I'll tell you what authorities found in the shooter's car and why police now believe he targeted this building.
170 million Americans under heat alert as that dangerous heat wave continues its sweep across the country, triggering severe storms with high winds, flash flooding, and hail. Is there finally relief in sight? A new study in the advance of Alzheimer's, how exercise, diet, and regular medical care could make a difference for those with a higher than average risk of the disease, and which one habit matters the most. It's the most common cancer in the U.S., with nearly 10,000 new diagnoses every single day, the majority of those cases in men. By age 65, men are twice as likely as women to develop melanoma, yet only 12% of men use sunscreen regularly compared to a third of women. In tonight's Prime Focus, we look at the why behind those numbers and what's being done to turn those stats around. And he's a New York Times bestselling author and the host of Jeopardy. Ken Jennings is here. He talks to us about his new way to connect with audiences, hosting the popular game show, and why he's now teaming up with Matt Damon.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We begin with the fallout after 2 hours of sheer terror inside a New York City skyscraper after a deadly attack unlike any the city has seen in recent memory. This is the moment when it all began. 27-year-old Shane Tamura approaching 345 Park Avenue, just blocks away from Grand Central Station. He went into the lobby and opened fire, killing an NYPD officer and 2 more before taking the elevator to the 33rd floor. Officers with long guns then entered the building in formation. Inside, they would find victims, some running out, carrying the wounded. Others inside heard the gunfire and used furniture to barricade the door. Tonight, the gunman is accused of killing 4 people and wounding a 5th before taking his own life. Authorities now believe he was targeting the NFL. Tonight, we remember the victims. Officer Didinal Islam, working an extra shift, leaves behind a pregnant wife and 2 sons. Wesley LePatner, who worked for Blackstone. Security guard Alande Etienne and Julia Hyman, who worked on the 33rd floor. Our team is standing by to break it all down. And ABC's chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky leads us off with more on the sprawling investigation now underway into what happened. Hi, Aaron.
Linsey, the authorities have not firmly decided on a motive, but they believe they're getting closer to understanding why the shooter may have targeted this building. Tonight, the terrifying scene in Midtown Manhattan. After a deadly shooting rampage that authorities now believe targeted the headquarters of the National Football League because the shooter thought he suffered a traumatic brain injury.
Multiple calls from 345 Park Avenue.
Sources tell ABC News the shooter left a 3-page note blaming the NFL for his traumatic brain injury. He did play football, but never made it to that level. On this page, obtained by ABC News, he wrote, "Study my brain, please. I'm sorry." This chilling image shows the shooter wearing sunglasses, casually walking toward his target with an M4-style rifle.
Yo, that's cool. They're going to 345. That's where he is.
Police say 27-year-old Shane Tamura double-parked his BMW and entered the lobby about 6:30 last night, immediately opening fire. He shot and killed an NYPD officer. The shooter kept firing, killing a woman hiding behind a pillar, and then a security guard taking cover behind a desk. When the shooter then moved deeper inside the building, police say he allowed a woman stepping off an elevator to pass unharmed. Perhaps seeking out the NFL offices, he instead wound up on the 33rd floor, where he fired again down a hallway.
The 33rd floor is not secure. We have multiple people shot.
Taking another life before shooting himself in the chest. Police carrying victims from the building, treating them on the street, while other officers rushed inside with guns drawn, employees barricading doors with furniture. Later exiting with their hands up, office worker Tim Wynn terrified.
We heard shootings.
Can you tell me what you heard?
Ran into the room. It was so loud, it was like ringing into the building.
4 people killed, a 5th wounded before officials say the gunman took his own life. His body found on the 33rd floor along with his blood-stained rifle, a weapon similar to what the U.S. military uses. And tonight, the mayor baffled. The shooter inexplicably spared 1 life.
Why did he let this woman he passed on his way to the elevator live? It baffled everyone who saw the tape. It was eerie. She walked off the elevator, he walked on the elevator, and he allowed her to pass just after he took the lives of others and injured others.
Police say Tamura drove across the country from Nevada in a black BMW spotted Saturday in Colorado, Sunday in Nebraska and Iowa, and Monday in New Jersey before arriving in New York less than 2 hours before the shooting. His note claimed he had CTE, a brain condition associated with repeated blows to the head from playing football.
We're here with standout running back Shane Tamura.
Tamura played in high school in Southern California.
Just had to stay disciplined and come together as a team.
He did not play professional football. An autopsy is now underway.
This individual had one intention, and that was to take the lives of innocent New Yorkers.
And he had the capability to do it.
And he had the capability to do it.
Police said the shooter had a documented mental health history, and when officers searched the car, they said they found medication along with a legally purchased .357 caliber revolver, ammunition, and 2 cell phones. This is the gated subdivision here in Las Vegas where the shooter lived about 20 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. In 2022, he received a concealed carry permit. That same year was the first of at least 2 calls for a person in mental health distress. Tonight, the NYPD is sending detectives to Las Vegas to determine how the shooter obtained the gun used in the attack. Sources say a co-worker at the Horseshoe Casino, where Tamura works security, purchased a piece of the rifle. Records show Tamura was arrested and charged with trespassing in 2023, but the charges were later dropped. Tonight, we're learning more about his victims. The NYPD mourning officer Didnul Islam on the force 3.5 years, who leaves behind a pregnant wife and 2 sons.
He was doing the job that we asked him to do. He died as he lived, a hero.
Security guard Alain Etienne, his family writing, "He was more than a brother. He was a father, a son, and a light in our lives." Julia Hyman, a graduate of Cornell, remembered as an extraordinary student. She worked on the 33rd floor. Wesley LePatner, an executive at the investment firm Blackstone, also headquartered at 345 Park Avenue, was a mother of 2. She's remembered as brilliant, passionate, warm, generous, and deeply respected.
Such unnecessary loss of life. Aaron Katersky joins us now from the scene. Aaron, you were with us every step of the way in our coverage last night. What are you learning now about what comes next in this investigation?
There are 2 urgent priorities for the NYPD, Lindsay. One exists in Las Vegas. That's where the police want to understand the tracing of the weapons, how the suspect obtained the high-powered rifle that he used here in New York, and they want to establish why he targeted this building. They believe his note that you saw helps get there. The mayor told us that it seems like he was targeting the NFL because he blamed the league for a traumatic brain injury that he may or may not have suffered. The autopsy results have not been completed to determine whether he did in fact suffer from CTE. That's a nagging question down the road, Lindsay.
So many interested to find that out. Aaron Katersky, our thanks to you. Joining us now to discuss this case is former senior FBI criminal profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole. Mary, thank you so much for joining us. At this point, we've all seen that chilling image of Tamura casually walking toward the building carrying an assault rifle. Officials say that he then sprayed the lobby with bullets, shooting people that were even trying to avoid him or hiding behind pillars. And he then allowed a woman to walk out from the elevator, sparing her from being shot. You've worked on so many high-profile cases decoding the mind behind the criminal. How would you describe this case?
Oh, well, this case certainly has some very unique features. And for me, one of them is that part of the motivation does not seem to be consistent with other mass shootings. So I think in this case, the motivation certainly was that this individual wanted to commit suicide. And I think that will bear out after the investigation is completed. And I think with some of these victims, what we call them are victims of opportunity. If he thought that they were in his way, he would get rid of them. The woman that he spared may have been someone that in his mind was not a threat to him, so he allowed her to go. As you break down these cases, it's difficult to say with 100% accuracy why the shooter decided to do what he did. But overall, I would say that one of his motivations, only one, there were multiple ones, was that at the end of the day, he knew he was going to kill himself.
We've learned that Tamura drove across the country in just a few days, and that when he got to New York, he went right to the building on Park Avenue. A preliminary investigation indicates that his target was the NFL office in that building. What does this level of planning tell you about the shooter?
Well, it was a level of planning, which says that he thought about it and he made plans. The plans were effective. But the one thing that he didn't do, it appears, is that he did not go into the building ahead of time. So he knew that the NFL was up on the 33rd floor. So he went to the wrong floor initially. So that tells me he did not have the opportunity to go through the building initially. And so he made mistakes. And that's what we look for when we're assessing a crime scene. What were the mistakes that the offender made? And I think because he immediately went to the building after driving across country, he probably just didn't have time to scope out the building beforehand.
On the note found in his pocket, he mentioned CTE and said, "Study my brain, please. I'm sorry." What does this note tell you about Tamura?
It suggests to me that he was concerned about suffering from CTE, which is a degenerative brain disease. You can't really assess it until after someone has died and during an autopsy. But it looks like he really believed that's what he was suffering from, when in fact he could have suffered from other mental health issues and not CTE. And I think that's important to understand. And if someone does suffer from a mental health disorder, it still doesn't mean they can't think critically and they can't make decisions and that they don't know right from wrong. So if at the end of the autopsy, they determine that he's not suffering from CTE, it still does not mean that he wasn't suffering from serious and maybe debilitating mental health issues, but still could function.
Mary Ellen O'Toole, we thank you so much for your time and insight. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we're joined now by Dr. Leah Kroll, who's an assistant professor of neurology at SUNY Downstate Health Sciences University here in New York. Doctor, thank you for joining us. So the shooter is really only guessing because we can't know that he had CTE until after death. But give us a sense of how a lot of impact, high impact to the head and the brain could cause CTE.
Yeah, so CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. You're right that it can only be diagnosed with autopsy. But essentially the idea is that over time, as someone accumulates more and more hits to the brain accumulates abnormal proteins called tau that can really interfere with its functioning and really produce symptoms that get in the way of someone's cognitive abilities. It might produce mood swings, memory changes, impulsive and aggressive behaviors, for example.
So why can it only be diagnosed after death?
That's a great question. It's a very hot and active area of research in terms of trying to understand how we can diagnose people sooner. First of all, that's been a major roadblock in terms of researching treatments for this disease, right? Because we can't even diagnose it until after someone's already gone. So I think we are behind other brain disorders here in terms of our diagnostic capability, but it's certainly an area that gets a lot of research attention right now.
So how is CTE ultimately diagnosed?
Ultimately, the only way to diagnose it is with that autopsy. We have to physically look at someone's entire brain. Doctors may suspect that someone has CTE if they have the symptoms and the history. Maybe they're an athlete, a military vet who may have sustained a number of head traumas. But beyond that, it can only be a suspicion until that autopsy.
And what do you see in the brain that you are able to definitively diagnose CTE?
You see clumps of abnormal proteins. You see atrophy or shrinking in certain parts of the brain that really are characteristic of this disease.
Dr. Kroll, thank you so much, and we'll see you later on in the show. Really appreciate it, and we'll talk about some exciting new findings about reducing the risk of developing dementia. So we'll see you in just a little bit. Severe storms and dangerous heat are persisting across the eastern half of the country, with 170 million Americans under heat alerts from Nebraska to Florida and up the Northeast. The temperatures are high, and it's going to feel, believe it or not, even hotter. Meteorologist Lee Goldberg has the forecast, but first, our Mola Lange reports from here in New York.
Tonight, unrelenting heat straining the power grid, taking a toll on the nation's largest transit system.
We're talking about trouble across nearly the entire alphabet of subway lines.
The New York City subway hit with massive delays from a power outage during the morning commute. Passengers sweltering on platforms.
At this point, it would appear that the heat stressed the system a bit.
The dome of extreme heat spreading south and east. Savannah felt like 113 degrees, even hotter than yesterday. Our Victor Oquendo is there.
They have seen it all here in Savannah over the last 24 hours. Emergency crews responding to calls of people fainting, cramping up, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke.
In Orlando, volunteers for Meals on Wheels, delivering food to the elderly while keeping a watchful eye.
We'll look for disorientation, just the inability to carry on conversation.
Heat fueling storms again overnight, spawning this massive tornado near Dixon, South Dakota.
Well, Lindsay, today it felt like 100 degrees here in New York City. Heat alerts are in effect for Philadelphia, New York, and Boston again tomorrow. Heat index values could hit 104, Lindsay.
Well, thank you. Now let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg from our New York station, WABC. Lee, I feel like a broken record. Will this heat let up anytime soon?
Yeah, home stretch of it, at least here in the Northeast, as we go into tomorrow, will be the last day. It's actually the first day of the established heat wave here in New York. But I'll tell you, outside a few minutes, and it's just waterworks. It's suffocating heat here. We hit a record high of 101 degrees in nearby Newark. And how about an all-time record high heat index of 119 degrees in Tampa, Florida? You have heat warnings and advisories all across the eastern two-thirds of the country. Now, we go into tomorrow, and it's still stifling heat from the Midwest, Southeast, up the East Coast. But you can see that the heat dome is starting to erode in the upper Midwest. Now, it'll still feel like 109 in St. Louis tomorrow and 103 in New York. But look at the difference as we go into Thursday and Friday, what it feels like, and even the actual temperatures dipping into the 70s. So big time relief, even cool to start the month of August. That may come via some drenching downpours and flooding in the Northeast. Meanwhile, the South, no real relief until we get to the weekend. It's still pretty searing as we go through Friday. Now, in terms of storms, they're across Montana and Nebraska tonight. There's a flood watch across parts of Iowa. By the way, it was a confirmed derecho across the upper northern plains yesterday. So still some strong storms there again tonight. Flood watch also into parts of New Mexico. Those storms come eastward and arrive in the Northeast after the heat tomorrow. Lindsay?
All of us fitsing together. All right, Lee Goldberg, our thanks to you. Late today, President Trump returned to the White House on Air Force One, making a claim about Jeffrey Epstein. The president told reporters Jeffrey Epstein once stole people who work for him at Mar-a-Lago, saying some of them were young women and some were from Trump's spa. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, traveling back from Scotland on Air Force One, President Trump telling reporters sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, quote, took people who worked for me at his Mar-a-Lago resort, acknowledging some of them were young women.
He took people, and because he took people, I said, don't do it anymore. You know, they work for me. And he took, beyond that, he took some others. And once he did that, that was the end of him. I didn't like, when they steal people, I don't like it.
Reporters then asking about those workers.
Are some of them young women? Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken. And it was the concept of taking people that work for me is bad. But that story's been pretty well out there. And the answer is yes, they were. Yes, they were young women? What did they do? In the spa. In the spa? Yeah, people that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-a-Lago. And people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
Trump then asked if one of those young women was Virginia Giuffre, who claimed Epstein's companion, Ghislaine Maxwell, recruited her at Trump's spa when she was just 16, taking her away from Mar-a-Lago and sex trafficking her to Epstein, and later allegedly to Britain's Prince Andrew. Maxwell denies that happened. Giuffre later sued Prince Andrew for sexual assault. He consistently denied her claims, but later settled the case without admitting wrongdoing. She died by suicide earlier this year.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Giuffre?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know. None whatsoever.
Last week, Maxwell spent 9 hours meeting with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is President Trump's personal attorney. She is currently serving 20 years in prison. The president has not ruled out pardoning her, saying, I'm allowed to do it.
A lot of controversy if she would receive a pardon. Rachel Scott joins us now from Scotland. Rachel, Maxwell also received a congressional subpoena to testify. Where does that stand tonight?
Yes, Lindsay. So the House Oversight Committee has subpoenaed Maxwell to testify before Congress. Today, we heard from her lawyer saying that she would be willing to testify, but with conditions, saying that she wanted to receive immunity. And that is something that congressional leaders say they are not willing to do. She also offered to testify publicly if she were to receive that pardon, Lindsay.
Rachel Scott reporting for us from Scotland. Thanks so much, Rachel. There are new images tonight of a person of interest in the murder of a couple in an Arkansas state park. Police released a sketch of the suspect and a photo showing what the man was wearing. The suspect attacked the couple while they were hiking with their 2 young daughters. The girls were not harmed. Investigators said today that they have new clues in the case. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas with more.
Authorities in northwest Arkansas today releasing a photograph of a person of interest in that deadly attack on a couple hiking in a popular park with their young daughters. In the picture, you can only see the back of the man's head, but what he's wearing, dressed all in black, eerily similar to witness descriptions.
Be on the lookout for a white male suspect wearing black gloves, sunglasses, dark-colored pants, attacked a male and a female on Devil's Den hiking trail.
Police also releasing this sketch of a potential suspect, a white man wearing a cap. The FBI joining the search in its 3rd day for a dangerous suspect who may kill again and who police say may have been injured in Saturday's attack on Christian Brink and her husband, Clinton.
We suspect the suspect to have injuries.
Police say the couple and their daughters, ages 7 and 9, recently moved to Arkansas. Clinton's employer telling ABC News he transferred from a South Dakota location and was scheduled to begin work yesterday.
Pierre Thomas joins us now. Pierre, so many questions police are still trying to find answers to. What comes next in this investigation?
Well, the family is asking for the public's help in catching the killer. And Lindsay, they said in the statement the couple died heroes protecting those little girls.
Pierre Thomas, our thanks to you as always.
Pleasure.
The Environmental Protection Agency is moving to repeal the landmark finding that greenhouse gases are a threat to public health. That 2009 finding is the basis under the Clean Air Act for the ability to regulate emissions from cars, power plants, and other sources. But EPA Chief Lee Zeldin says the regulations cost Americans a lot of money, and he plans to repeal them. Lawsuits to challenge the move are expected. America's pastime is mourning. MLB Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg has died after a year-plus battle with prostate cancer. Emphatically nicknamed Rhino by Harry Carey, the second baseman played 16 MLB seasons, 15 of them with the Chicago Cubs. The 1982 National League MVP was named a 10-time All-Star before being elected to the Hall of Fame in 2005. Sandberg served as team ambassador of the Cubs in 2016 when they won their first World Series in 108 years. Sandberg was 65. Coming up, some of your most common household goods are about to go up in price again. What to know before your next shopping trip. And they're among the worst offenders when it comes to protecting their skin from sun. We're talking about men. But in tonight's Prime Focus, there's a renewed push to be mindful of that protection to avoid some lesser known risks.
People take their skin for granted. And so there's also this notion that I'm either too young or it's not going to happen to me, and or, you know, another time I'll do it, or like I need to have a tan.
Welcome back. It's the most common cancer in the U.S. with nearly 10,000 new diagnoses every single day. We are talking about melanoma. And it's not the only skin cancer risk that you could face by going outside without sunscreen. The worst offenders when it comes to skipping UV protection for their skin, men. Now cancer survivors, brands, and even a major celebrity are trying to convince men to take more precautions. ABC's Dr. Darian Sutton explores why men are so against sunscreen and the major risk they take by not applying it.
He's a wrestling superstar. John Cena can slam his opponents to the ground with ease. He's also one of Hollywood's most bankable celebrities, often playing up the macho.
I'm exercising the muscles in my face, making my face more muscular.
But it's the 48-year-old's latest role that has men talking.
Neutrogena Ultra Sheer Mineral Sunscreen.
The A-lister partnered with Neutrogena's sunscreen line with the message: even the toughest guys are no match for the sun. and he's living proof. In an interview with People magazine, Cena revealed he's been diagnosed with skin cancer twice, discovering melanoma on his chest and back. He blames not taking sun protection seriously. I'm out here in Soho today, and the UV index is a 7. That means that everyone theoretically should have some level of sun protection on. Let's see if that's the truth.
I don't need to put glop on myself.
And you wear sunblock.
Well, you know, my makeup has sunblock. He won't even let me spray him with sunblock.
Do you wear sunblock every day?
Yes, I do wear sunblock every day.
Do you wear sunblock every day?
I wear sunblock every day. I don't even know why. I guess it's just not part of my routine. Maybe I should implement it more.
Do you have sunblock on now?
No. I know the UVs are probably high right now.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about it. I'm embarrassed.
Have you been taught to use sunblock at all, or is it something you think about?
I've been taught, but I can't use it because it irritates my skin. That's why I have to wear this here.
Daily sunscreen split along the gender line. One study from the CDC found that just 12% of men use sunscreen regularly, compared to almost a third of women. By age 65, men are twice as likely than women to develop melanoma. By age 80, that jumps to 2 to 3 times as likely. At one of the top cancer hospitals in the country, we meet a doctor and his patient.
We played baseball against each other. We were on different teams, and he ran his mouth so much.
Anthony didn't like me.
Yeah.
So I was like 8th grade baseball,
yeah.
you know, like.
He said stuff about my mom. He's never even met my mom. Yeah.
This is recorded.
Yeah.
They've known each other for a long time. Dermatologist Dr. Anthony Rossi and Stephen Palmisi's friendship began when they were kids, growing up on Staten Island. What was skincare like in that time period?
Skincare was one-dimensional. It was if you're having, acne outbreaks, you go to the dermatologist, you had a prescription for Retin A, and that was it.
I'm from like a very Italian family who were always tan, and they would be like, you need to go to the tanning salon because like you're so pale.
Was there any discussion about risk of sun damage?
There wasn't even a thought. It was I'd go out in the sun, I'm looking for a tan, going to the gym and looking good, and then having a tan that would enhance or, sort of really show your muscles was kind of what the thought process was.
Dr. Rossi examined his friend's skin and discovered a concerning spot.
Said, hey, come in, we should take a look at what's on your leg.
That spot was melanoma. Stephen taking it as a wake-up call.
Now I'm consciously aware of my skin, always checking my moles. And now I have children, so I'm, constantly checking my children as well.
While genetics can play a part, skin cancer is largely caused by prolonged exposure to UV rays. It's the most common cancer in the United States, with nearly 10,000 new diagnoses every single day. The majority of those cases in men. Help me understand the types of skin cancer that you see often.
The most common cancer reported in the United States is basal cell carcinoma. Basal cell carcinoma tends to be more locally aggressive. Squamous cell carcinoma is probably the second most common type that we see. It does have a little bit of a larger tendency to be locally aggressive or metastasize. And then the third most common type that we see is melanoma. It is even more likely to cause problems throughout the body or to become deadly.
Am I at as much risk as my peers who are not black?
My patients of color, because certain types of melanoma, for instance, one called acrolentiginous melanoma, is more likely to come up in people of color. That's a melanoma that comes up on the palm of the hand or the sole of the foot and is typically very aggressive. Men are more likely to develop every single kind of of the common skin cancers that we see.
I have, I guess, what some people might call white coat syndrome. I hate going to a doctor.
Attorney Stephen Sladkis is a husband, a father, and a lover of the sun.
I would sit by the pool with my wife and kids, not put any sunscreen on my face. I'd love to get a nice red burn that I guess I would hope would turn into a tan. And to me, that looked healthy.
For years, he's avoided seeing a dermatologist until his wife urged him to go. It was during that visit the doctor found something concerning.
And she said, well, how long have you had this mole on the top of your head? And I said, I have no idea. I really never look at the top of my head.
A week later, Stephen received a life-altering phone call.
It was my dermatologist, and she said, "Stephen, I hate to break this to you, but your mole on your head was melanoma." I'm sitting on the curb going, "Oh my God, this can't be happening." I mean, you hear the word melanoma, you hear cancer, you freak out.
With melanoma, there's a high survival rate, especially when caught early, with 95% of patients still alive 5 years after their diagnosis. After a successful surgery, Stephen, with that scar as a reminder, now proactive with how he views his entire health, regularly going to doctors and wearing sunscreen with protective clothing.
If people know the benefits of using SPF every day and they literally don't, why is that? And so that was the aha moment that we had for Soul Labs.
Seth Nelson started Soul Labs, a mineral sunscreen brand with his wife Jenny. After sitting in on one of her dermatology appointments, the doctor noticed a spot on his leg. It was melanoma.
You realize that, wow, my past has led up to this point, but now my future has to be a different direction.
The two of them realized sunscreen is often marketed towards women. They saw a growing demand from men wanting to protect their skin for daily use. They're part of a growing number of companies creating gender-neutral packaging and marketing to men outright, like the brand Oars and Alps.
Men want to embrace better skin care, better skin health, sun care, and sun health. We just gotta give them something.
When did you first start having discussions about managing exposure to the sun and protecting your skin?
If I'm being honest, like even in med school, like I was still getting sunburned. It wasn't really until I really focused in on dermatology that you started to see like all the melanomas that would come into clinic and, young people who were presenting with bad melanomas. But I noticed that this spot kept flaking and kept like itching on my arm. And so I got a biopsy and it was a basal cell carcinoma.
Dr. Rossi showed us the scar on his arm, a reminder of the past, then showing us the future of skin health, taking us into a high-tech exam room. Wow, this is incredible. This 3D total body scanner at Memorial Sloan Kettering is one of just a few in the world. It uses more than 90 cameras, and with the backing of artificial intelligence, it can flag any suspicious-looking spots. How long does that process take?
Seconds. And then the computer generates the 3D avatar that we can rotate and spin and look at every angle of your body.
What do you wish people would understand about skin cancer now that you've had your experience?
People take their skin for granted. And so there's also this notion that I'm either too young or it's not going to happen to me.
If you could time travel and go back in time, would you stop yourself from getting in those tanning beds?
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't even look good anyway after, so I shouldn't have been in there in the first place,
Hopefully this message will hit home. Our thanks to Dr. Darian Sutton for that. Coming up, Jeopardy host Ken Jennings has a new way to connect with audiences, and the answer is, what are puzzles? He's here to tell us all about that, plus why he's teaming up with Matt Damon. But first, what a new study is revealing about how your lifestyle could increase your risk for Alzheimer's. We'll show you the one thing you may want to do differently. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. New groundbreaking research is being presented this week at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference in Toronto. At least 2 studies presented there show that exercise, diet, and other lifestyle changes could slow cognitive decline for people with a higher than average risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. Some of the research is noted in tonight's By the Numbers. Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia, accounting for 60 to 70% of cases worldwide, according to the World Health Organization. But research continues to show there are significant opportunities to reduce the number of cases. It's estimated that approximately 45% of the dementia risk can be attributed to modifiable risk factors. One risk factor, midlife obesity, has consistently been associated with an increased risk of dementia. Individuals with a body mass index in the obesity range have a 1.4-fold increased risk of dementia. And sleeping 6 hours or less when in your 50s through your 70s was associated with a 30% increase in dementia risk compared to those who slept closer to 7 hours. Finally, exercise could perhaps be the one factor that best reduces the risk of developing dementia. Regular exercise reduced the risk by 28%, and Alzheimer's in particular by 45%. That according to an analysis of 16 studies by the Alzheimer's Society. And once again, we are joined by Dr. Leah Kroll, who's an assistant professor of neurology at SUNY Downstate Health Sciences University. Dr. Kroll, thanks so much for coming back on. So when we're talking about people who are at higher risk of developing Alzheimer's, give us a sense of how genetics factors in compared to those modifiable factors.
Well, this is really interesting, Lindsay, because certainly there are certain genes that increase someone's risk for developing Alzheimer's, but having that gene isn't a guarantee. It doesn't mean it'll definitely happen to you. Then there are risk factors that are potentially modifiable. So these are things like age. The older we get, especially over 65, we're more likely to develop dementia. Women are more at risk. Blacks and Hispanics are more at risk. People with certain medical conditions like obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, hearing loss. So the whole picture of who you are sort of determines your risk. And one thing I think that's really interesting from a body of research we're really only just starting to understand is that even things like genetics and other risk factors are not guaranteed. Your behavior can still modify those types of risks.
And when you talk about behavior, things that we actually can change, is there one in particular that stands out as being largely more important?
Yes, I'm going to give you sort of a rapid fire version of what I tell my patients because there's really 5 things everyone should know. Number 1, talk to your medical doctor about what medical risk factors you have for dementia and what you need to do to stay on top of them. Number 2, physical exercise, increase that activity level. It boosts your brain health. Number 3, brain healthy diet. Number 4, socialize, really invest in social relationships throughout your life. And number 5, prioritize getting great sleep and stress management. But if I had to pick just one, I tell my patients it's that increased physical activity that really makes a huge difference for your long-term cognitive health.
And something that we can all do.
Absolutely.
When we talk about age, is there a particular time of life when we really should say, okay, I'm going to, almost as if, you know, when you get a mammogram, there's a certain time. Is there a certain point when you should say, I'm going to really try and reduce my chances of getting dementia?
So what I'll say is it's never too late. Ideally, we would be developing healthy habits early in life and carrying them through our entire lives. Now, most people are not doing that. We're only human, right? But you should never be at a point where you say, it's too late for me, I'm going to throw my hands up. That just isn't the case. Research really proves to us, whether you're older, whether you have genetic risk, other risk factors for dementia, starting to adopt healthy lifestyle patterns will make a meaningful difference in terms of preventing, delaying, slowing down dementia.
How do you know if you're high risk?
So things to look out for, number 1, what medical factors might be there. Obesity, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, hearing loss, vision loss. I can't emphasize enough how important these things are for your brain health. Number 2, your family history. Is there perhaps a genetic source of your risk for Alzheimer's disease and other dementias? And number 3, your lifestyle habits. And number 4, sort of who you are. As we mentioned before, women have higher risk than men. Blacks and Hispanics have higher risk than other groups. So all of these things sort of come together to inform your risk.
Dr. Kroll, we thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And coming up, Emmy-nominated Jeopardy host Ken Jennings is out today with a new book of trivia, The Complete Connections, 5,000 questions and 1,000 puzzles. He's here to tell us about that and his upcoming appearance on the celebrity edition of ABC's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And Burmese pythons are invasive to Florida's Everglades. So how might robotic rabbits be part of the solution? We'll tell you next. The latest push from Sean Diddy Combs' legal team to get him out of jail. A price hike is coming for some of the most common household items. And Katie Ledecky keeps a 15-year winning streak alive, proving her place as the best female swimmer of all time. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. In a new court filing, lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs asked a federal judge to release him from jail ahead of his sentencing October 3rd, saying there are exceptional reasons why he should be allowed out after 11 months. The proposal includes a $50 million bail bond secured by his sprawling Miami home. Combs was convicted of prostitution-related offenses but acquitted of more serious sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy charges, but the judge kept him in jail, citing a provision in the Transportation to Engage in Prostitution law that he said presumes detention. A proposed merger between railroad companies Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern would create the first transcontinental railroad in the United States. The two companies put the value of their combined entities at over $200 billion and said the merger would streamline operations across the country. The deal must be approved by antitrust regulators before it's finalized. A teenager exploring Yellowstone National Park suffered significant thermal burns at a hot spring near the famous Old Faithful geyser. Park officials said the 17-year-old was on a hike when his foot broke through the surface of the thermal area, resulting in burns on his feet and ankles. Officials say the teen was transported to a nearby hospital for treatment. Procter & Gamble said the company will increase prices on some of their goods due to tariffs. In an earnings call with reporters, P&G's chief financial officer confirmed the price hikes will start next month. In a statement to ABC News, the company said the average increase is about 2.5%, which is broadly in line with overall inflation. The company, which manufactures popular toothpaste brand Crest and Tide detergent, also announced that it would be cutting 7,000 non-manufacturing jobs, or 15%, over the next 2 years. They say the plan was in place before the trade wars began. Florida is testing a new way to capture invasive Burmese pythons in the Everglades. Scientists from the South Florida Water Management District and the University of Florida have teamed up to use robotic rabbit decoys equipped with cameras to alert officials if there's a python nearby. The rabbit decoys are solar powered and emit a heat signature and smell similar to a real rabbit. Pythons are among the most destructive animals in the Everglades. Officials say they rob other native predators of their primary food sources. American swimmer Katie Ledecky continues to dominate the competition in the 1,500-meter freestyle. The 28-year-old won her 22nd world title at the World Aquatics Championship in Singapore, beating the runner-up by more than 4 seconds. Ledecky's victory extended her 15-year winning streak in the event. She is the most decorated female swimmer in history, with 42 Olympic and world medals, with 31 gold medals. New York Times bestselling author and Jeopardy host Ken Jennings is finding a way to connect with audiences all over again with his new 400-plus page book, The Complete Connections, 5,000 questions and 1,000 puzzles. The book is based on his popular online game, Connections, where the 74-game Jeopardy champ asks fellow trivia buffs 5 questions that all share one secret theme that you must then figure out. Joining us now, Ken Jennings, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Lindsay.
And huge congratulations, because we know not only did you just get the Emmy nomination for Jeopardy Outstanding Game Show, but you personally got the nomination for Outstanding Game Show Host.
That's right.
Not an easy feat.
No, it's very exciting. I still feel like I'm a few steps behind the great Alex Trebek, who is a legend.
So the online version of Connections is available on mentalfloss.com. Mm-hmm. What made you decide, I'm going to actually go old school and do a paperback version?
I love books. I love trivia books. I had a shelf full of big trivia books as a kid. And a lot of these quizzes, I've been writing this for, nearly 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So long ago that it started out at Parade Magazine. Do you remember Parade Magazine in the Sunday paper? That's where Connections was born. And because of that, a lot of them have just been lost in the bowels of the internet over time. And I thought, that's a lot of wasted work. Let's bring them back. A giant book with way too much trivia.
So it sounds like if you collected this over 15 years, I was going to ask, how big of a research team did you have in order to compile all this? This wasn't just you, was it?
It's a one-man research team.
Oh, my goodness.
And because a lot of the quizzes are now over a decade old, a lot of revising and updating and editing just to make sure all the facts still check out and not things that have been lost in the mists of time.
That is super impressive. If somebody wants to become more like you, a trivia buff, that is, but they still have to maintain a full-time job.
Right.
What kinds of exercises, what kinds of things might you recommend that they do?
I feel like it is available to everyone, because we all have really good memories for the things we love. So trivia people just tend to be omnivorous. They're curious about everything. That's just a way you can live your life. Every day, if somebody mentions a subject you've never heard of or says their hometown and you don't know where that is, you can look it up. You can go down an internet rabbit hole. You can ask follow-up questions. You can do the same thing on podcasts or follow links online. It's just a way of being more of an active learner all day, every day.
What was it for you?
As a kid, it was a lot of, we had fewer options. There's no internet. So to me, it's the World Book Encyclopedia.
Okay, I remember those.
The colored pages with the flags or like transparencies of the human body.
And you would just sit down and flip through the encyclopedia while I was reading like the Babysitter's Club. You were reading encyclopedias.
Well, I was reading Encyclopedia Brown too, but like sometimes I was reading actual encyclopedias. I was mad that the library wouldn't let you check them out. Like, no, Ken, you can't take those home. Those stay here.
Finally, aside from hosting a game show, having the new book coming out, you also make an appearance in 2 different episodes of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, along with Matt Damon. We want to look at a clip.
I want to do this by myself. And I had the feeling that Matt Damon is not just a good hang.
You're right, he's not a good hang. This is a betrayal. I am outraged. Game show hosts don't do this to each other. And my lawyers will be in touch with you, Ken Jennings.
Is there a game show host code?
Well, there was. Oh. Now there's not anymore.
So many people know there's a little fun, long-time feud between Matt Damon and Jimmy Kimmel. So now Jimmy Kimmel also hates you because you brought him along.
He says I broke the game show host code and brought Matt on the show. But Jimmy, don't make me pick between you and Matt Damon. I don't know how to tell Jimmy this, but America loves Matt Damon.
That's very funny. Give us a sense of the organization, water.org, that all the proceeds will go for, and why this is a 2-parter that you're making this appearance.
Water.org is actually Matt Damon's charity. Clean water to the developing world is such a huge problem. It solves so many nutritional and hygiene problems. And when Matt was passionate about that, I thought, well, I'm happy to help. And the reason why it's spread over 2 different episodes is probably so that Jimmy could do the gag where he says, we've run out of time for Matt Damon.
Oh,
I think that might be the only reason.
That totally makes sense now.
But yeah, cliffhanger. We're going to be back tomorrow night to see what happens.
All right, well, we hope that you get lots of money for water.org.
Fingers crossed.
Very worthwhile organization. Thank you so much, Ken, for coming back on the show. His new book of trivia, The Complete Connections, 5,000 questions and 1,000 puzzles, is out today. And you can watch the second part of his appearance on ABC's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire tomorrow, Wednesday at 8 p.m. 7 Central. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.